NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. At the start of a very cold winter session of Parliament, we are here to figure out if heated debate will further freeze things or will it actually lead to a thaw. So to do that, I have with me my very own heated debate on this roundtable. I have Mr. Ashwini Kumar, Senior Congress Leader and former UPA Minister, Jay Panda, BJD Leader from the Lok Sabha, Chandan Mitra, Senior BJP Leader from the Rajya Sabha, and Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Independent Member of Parliament from the Rajya Sabha. To begin with, Chandan, I'm going to start with you. We are beginning at a session where the Congress has laid down some very precise ground rules to let the Parliament function or not. The first one, of course, is this atmosphere of intolerance that is there in the country. So how are you going to address that?
Well, that I don't think is the principal issue. This is one of the side shows. I think the issue really is whether the economic legislation that is pending and which has been blocked by the Congress in the last session, whether it will go through this time, because that is the main problem facing the country, and therefore we will work, we shall talk to the Congress, we are talking to the Congress and other non-BJP parties, try to get them on board so that the GST bill and other legislations go through. I think that is the endeavour. Right now we are discussing the whole issue of the Constitution, its founding day, and that has brought parties together. I think a lot of the heat will get dissipated after this debate, because we are all united on the values of the Constitution, its principles, and on the basis of this we should look forward to going ahead with the pending legislation from next week.
Mr. Kumar, you see this debate on the Constitution as a means of deflecting from the main issue that you are raising, or are you thinking that the House will function after this?
No, I think the constitutional debate is a very good start to the Parliament, and I shocked, rather disappointed for Chandan to say that intolerance is not an issue. The only issue in the country today, at this point of time, which has caught the imagination of people across the country, are the unstoppable acts of intimidation leading to a psychosis of fear in the entire country, where anyone who wants to say anything is sought to be intimidated. Never before in the history of this country have we seen protests by the conscience keepers of the country at such a vast scale. Instead of trying to apply balm to the wounded sensitivities of the people, you are shooting the messenger either by calling these as manufactured dissent, or take the case of Amir Khan. Amir Khan has given an expression to his sense of anguish. It may be right, it may be wrong, it may be justified, it may not be justified. But to say that because he has shown the courage to express a view, he is anti-national, is something that is shocking, that goes against the basic tenet of India's constitutional philosophy of liberalism and tolerism. One may agree to disagree, one may have different perspectives. The economic agenda that Chandan referred to, let me tell you about the GST, because GST is one of the issues. It was our initiative. We stand committed in principle to the GST going ahead. We are certainly going to support the government, but you can't take the opposition support for granted. You can't say my way or highway. It won't work. That's not democracy.
Raji, you're an independent observer. How do you see this battle playing out, especially on GST?
No, I just want to jump in and comment on this issue of intolerance.
Right.
And I take a position that is somewhere in between Ashwini and Chandan, and maybe that's why I earn the salary of an independent MP. I think to dismiss it off the way Chandan has is wrong. I think even if 4 people in the country have a legitimate concern about tolerance and intolerance, Parliament owes it to them to have a debate. And so I believe that the debate is a necessary debate. Whether it is manufactured, whether it's dissent, whether it's real, whether it's not real, it will all come up during the debate. And that is what Parliament is for. The issue of intolerance should be debated, and it will be, and I think that's a good thing. Now, whether the debate on the Constitution is aimed at deflecting away from the tolerance debate or not, I don't believe that's correct.
Almost at each and every session that has been lost, it has been something or the other. It can be a serious issue. The allegation of intolerance is a serious allegation. Whether it's true or not, it deserves a debate. There are less serious issues on which Parliament has been held up. We just have to take a hard and fast stand that whatever be the issue, no matter how serious the issue, we should discuss it. Both sides should have a chance to either make their allegation or to refute the allegation. Now, let's come to GST. Indeed, we are in support of GST. Now, everybody says they're in support of GST, but somehow it's not happened the last couple of sessions. There are some genuine points, as Rajiv was pointing out. Even many of the government supporters are talking about not letting the rates become too high, not having a cascading effect of the 1% state tax. That's fine. We support these aspects. But there was a period over the last couple of days when it seemed to be that some people were asking that this must be written into the constitutional change. Now that's a little odd. I wouldn't use some of the words that some people in the government have used, but the fact it is very unconventional, very unnatural for a constitutional amendment, which is a very fundamental underlying thing, to specify rates of taxation. You know, India is such a large country, has so much potential, is today attracting the most FDI in the world. It's growing fast, but we are still not one market. It's very odd that we have all these barriers between different regions and different states.
The ease of doing business.
GST is vastly overdue. It's going to make a huge difference to the country and the economy. We are that far away from clinching an agreement. We shouldn't let this window also pass. We must do it in this session.
This session before this year. Chandan, why did it take for the government so long to reach out?
Well, I don't want to engage now, because the atmosphere is improving, and I
Okay.
don't want to say things that will upset Ashwini, my friend, or his party leaders. But I think there was a problem on both sides, to be fair. Congress was being obstructionist for a long time. The BJP did not do enough to reach out. So I think now, finally it's been resolved that you must reach out, try and sort out the differences. The issue of writing a percentage of tax into the constitution is unprecedented and I would say unwarranted. I agree with Jay that this is really has never happened. You write it into the bill because you can amend the bill at any point of time to hike it further or lower it. But how can you write a percentage into the constitution? And so to that extent, I think the Congress will need to reconsider that demand.
But moving on from GST, Mr. Kumar, during the constitution debate, Rajnath Singh brought up this point of adding secular and socialist within the adding to the preamble of the constitution. Do you think this is their way of a backdoor way of reigniting the debate whether the word secular should be included?
Well, I cannot comment into the mental processes and the intentions of the Home Minister
Okay, but what do you
in
see it
waking
as?
up this issue. But I can certainly say that this is a non-issue. To say that it is not dharm nirpeksh and it is panth nirpeksh is neither here nor there. You only enlarge the ambit of inclusion. So the secularism as a concept doesn't get extinguished by preferring another terminology. So this is just quibbling with words. I wish the Home Minister, consistent with his exalted position, would have taken the debate to a much more constructive, into a much more constructive direction, and told the people of India through his speech in Parliament where the government stands on these issues. These are serious, vital, fundamental issues and can never be debated enough. Now remember, the argument that originally the word secularism was not there in the constitution and it was brought in later is neither here nor there. As societies progress, as nations embark on the path of development, as new challenges present themselves, the representatives of the people at that time sit together in a deliberative, cooperative process to devise ways of making national charters more functional, more meaningful, more dynamic. So I have never understood what is this debate about. This country is far too big, the challenges are far too great. These are sentiments and sensitivities too sacred to be suborned by words here and there.
No, Priya, I don't agree with characterizations of sacred and all of that, because we have amended the constitution so many times that I don't believe there is a need to look at the constitution as something sacred. There are some basic principles there that the founding fathers have put, and we have to respect them. But look, I think we are missing the point. What is happening in the Lok Sabha is precisely what should happen, is a debate on the constitution. Now, Mr. Rajnath Singh has a particular point of view about how he sees these amendments. He is well within his right to say. If the Congress or Congress members have disagree with it, they have the right to freely express their disagreement. But because Mr. Rajnath Singh's opinion is not palatable to certain members of the Congress because of the origin of that amendment, certainly doesn't make him wrong, or doesn't certainly prevent him from saying what he believes in. And that is the crux of what parliamentary democracy and our constitution is about. You've got to have a billion people have, if necessary, 1.5 billion opinions. But to have a discourse and then, like Ashwini said, go about periodically reviewing the constitution and say what is dated, what is missing, what needs to be added, what doesn't need to be added. So I find absolutely nothing wrong in a debate. It is an absolutely right thing for us to do. It is better to do it in Parliament rather than do it outside and have
TV
mobs.
studios such as this.
Exactly. I'd rather have it in Parliament, where in the full glare of all citizens of the country, and get them engaged in this debate rather than say thou shalt not say this and thou shalt not say this.
I think Rajiv misunderstood what I was saying. I do not question Mr. Rajnath Singh's right to give a spin to a particular word. I don't question that. He has the privilege of doing that, and more so because he's a senior minister of the government. All I'm saying is that I do not find substance or merit in extending this debate or quibbling with words. That's all I'm saying.
Fair enough. But Jay, can I take it, what you have to say on this point? And also, you raised a very important point on the functioning, the right of the Rajya Sabha. You're seeing that as a hindrance to the functioning of the Lok Sabha. You've also questioned, saying that maybe should the Rajya Sabha be given the right to veto bills passed by the Lok Sabha?
So there are two
First,
issues here.
yeah.
On secularism, let me just say that India and Indians are inherently secular. If we weren't, no wording in the constitution could have ensured it. Let's be clear about that first. Now, secularism has taken on a unique Indian meaning, and perhaps it should be debated. For instance, secularism in a constitutional democracy everywhere ought to guarantee each individual citizen his or her rights, not groups of citizens. And yet, although it's in the directive principles of our constitution that we ought to aim for a uniform civil code, that discussion is not happening either. So that discussion needs to happen at some point. I'm not sure now is the right time, but the fact is,
Because of the atmosphere.
be that as it may, the fact is the word secularism was introduced into the preamble through constitutional means. The government of the day had the majority in both houses and got it done. So a time can happen when we can debate it and then discuss the true meaning of secularism and discuss all of that. Now, about the Rajya Sabha.
Manjan, do you want to come on the second
I want to come on this point that you see, while I don't disagree with much of what he has said, I must point out that the amendment of the constitution to introduce these words has a baggage and represents a dark chapter in Indian history. These bills, this constitutional amendment bill, 42nd amendment, was pushed through Parliament with the entire opposition or most of its leaders behind bars, and it happened during the emergency. So there is a kind of a sour note to this, and but I entirely agree with Jay that we are innately a secular people, and India was secular before the amendment was passed. India remains secular after the amendment has been there.
Okay, Jay,
Now,
back to you.
about the balance of powers between the two houses, this is something very important. Now, I've been writing about this for 10 years, so this is not about being pro-BJP or anti-BJP or
Arun
pro-Congress.
Jaitley seems to agree with you.
It's not, that's all right. In the past, I've written exactly the same thing when the UPA was in power.
Okay.
Let's understand something very clearly. The checks and balances are very important in a democracy. So I'm not saying the Rajya Sabha should be done away with. The Rajya Sabha has a very responsible position to play, which is that the lower house should not just make laws in the heat of the moment because they have a mandate. It should be considered. And the role of the upper house is to provide that caution so that all things are considered. Now, should they have a veto? This is a very interesting thing. The amount of checks that we have between the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha in India today, no other democracy has. And that's what I'm talking about. I've actually compared with 3 countries that have faced similar situation: US, UK, and only last month Italy has changed its constitution so that its upper house can no longer veto any bills passed by the lower house. So the point I'm trying to make is, we can't be the only one with an obsolete system of too many checks and not enough balance. Checks and balances should mean that if it is going to remain indirectly elected, the Rajya Sabha should have some powers of breaking legislation but not vetoing it altogether. Otherwise, it should be directly elected and be more aligned with public interest.
There are 3 checks here to your balance because we have 3 Rajya Sabha members over here. So, you want to take it first?
Yeah, I want to take going first. I want to point out to Jay that while it's food for thought, and I think we must debate it. We are an evolving democracy, and systems can evolve, and everybody, every thinking person, every analyst can give their opinion, what can be done, and should be considered. But let me give you a reverse example to begin with. The Women's Reservation Bill has been passed by the Rajya Sabha. It has been many years since it was passed by the Rajya Sabha, but it could not be passed by the Lok Sabha, although the government of the day had a majority, along with its allies. So it's not that Rajya Sabha alone blocks a piece of legislation. By muscle power and decibel power, it is possible to block legislation passed by the Rajya Sabha in the Lok Sabha. So I think we have to take the whole thing in totality. I believe checks and balances must remain, and Rajya Sabha performs a very useful function. Unfortunately, of late, because the ruling party, a party with a majority in the Lok Sabha, has not had a majority in the Rajya Sabha simultaneously, parties have been using one house or the other to block legislation, which is unfortunate. There should be perhaps an intermediary mechanism between the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha to see to it that this checks and balances, which is a point I entirely agree, can be worked out. But doing away with the Rajya Sabha or doing away with its powers that exist at present, I think is premature and could lead to very serious and dangerous implications.
Well, we need to take a quick break, but don't go away, because when we come back, we are going to be discussing the powers of the Rajya Sabha versus the Lok Sabha. Welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable.
This argument about taking away the veto power of the Rajya Sabha, I think really is not a sound argument, because there is, in that sense, no veto power of the Rajya Sabha on critical bills, like no finance bill can be blocked by the Rajya Sabha. The task of governance can go on. But the very purpose of a second chamber was to have the benefit of sagacious, wise voices, which could, away from the heat of electoral politics, give their thoughtful consideration and act as, somebody said, auxiliary protection against the transient impulses of the ruling majority. So I think just because at a given point of time, a particular Rajya Sabha is able to question or stall or block, whatever terminology you want to use for it, a particular bill, can never be an argument to do away with the powers of the Rajya Sabha.
All right.
Rajya Sabha in its present form is required. Rajya Sabha's MPs cannot be diminished merely because they are not directly elected. After all, they are also elected by the elected representatives of the state assemblies. So all these 1911 changes in the UK and other changes, and the point of view that Jay has expressed, were before the Constituent Assembly. These points were debated, and Dr. Ambedkar at that point of time had said that these are not valid objections, for the simple reason that the strength of Rajya Sabha is half that of the Lok Sabha. So if the party commanding a majority in the Lok Sabha cannot even have a few members in the Rajya Sabha to support it so that it can on a total overall basis get its legislation through, then it has no right to go on. And then there's also the mechanism
a
mechanism of a joint session.
Yeah, that's
what he was going to say.
Yes.
Yeah, Rajiv, are you going to fight a Lok Sabha now?
No. I don't think I'm cut out for that. But I think this is a slightly simplistic way of looking at things. I accept the argument that the Rajya Sabha comes in the way of a popular mandate. And that is the argument that is being made to justify a review of the Rajya Sabha's powers. And that is a legitimate argument. But I think instead of looking at dissolving the Rajya Sabha, like Ashwini said, there has to be a better definition of how a joint session is convened. So if the Rajya Sabha, for example, is used to stall the passage of a bill,
Which is being done now.
there should be an amendment in the constitution that says that automatically a joint session can be triggered. If the Rajya Sabha is doing what it is supposed to do, which is to debate and provide oversight and alternate opinion on a bill, that's fine. If they reject a bill, that's fine. But if the Rajya Sabha starts obstructing a bill, there must be a provision to have a joint session. Number one. Number two, I just want to make a quick point. This belief that the Lok Sabha, because it's got a popular mandate, will always legislate well is a dangerous belief. I will give Jay 5 different bills that have been passed by the Lok Sabha that are totally flawed and that have been passed because there is an anti-defection law and a whip that has been issued that prevents MPs from legitimately speaking their mind about the bill. If you want to reform the system, it is not to take one piece and then chop and dice that. You have to look at the entire parliamentary system, the anti-defection law, the whip, how does an individual MP get to speak against his party's position, all of that on the entirety, put it on the table and then say, let's reform the parliamentary system and figure out a better way of doing things that are more reflective of the popular mandate and doesn't, get contradicted by a particular obstruction.
Quickly, the last word.
I've served 9 years in the Rajya Sabha and now second term in the Lok Sabha. I'm afraid my friends are making arguments against stands that I have not taken. Nobody is asking for the Rajya Sabha to be dissolved. I agree with Chandan that muscle power has no place either inside or outside the parliament. So we should stop the use of muscle power to stop the passage of bills. That has got nothing that has nothing to do with what we are talking about here. I started at the beginning by saying that it is a legitimate role of the Rajya Sabha to act as a check and a caution against the popular mandate of the day, but not to the extent of shutting the door. Check and caution to the extent of slowing down the process is what it should be doing. We are carrying forward biases against democracy that have 19th century. Other countries have done away with it. So all I'm saying is more balance, less check.
Well, that's it for this week. We can continue the discussion, but that will be a whole new debate. Thank you for watching this edition of Roundtable. We'll see you again, same time next week.